April 6, 2024. I want to address something that's kind of the basis of, in fact, all these videos from the very beginning back in the 2020 campaign. And it also is a reaction a little bit to the basic theme of the Biden campaign, which we've been hearing ad nauseum for some time now, ever since his red speech, if you remember, where he totally trashes MAGA Republicans as being this titanic threat to democracy and and all this insanity that he puts out. And of course, I think it's worth some reaction to it. And in fact, I'm quite disappointed at the way the Republican candidates across the board, the party as a whole, and even candidate Trump at this point is handling this situation. I mean, they keep railing on and on and on about what a great threat to democracy that the Republicans are, or that Trump is personally, and all that sort of thing, which of course is complete nonsense. Of course, I guess it depends a little bit by what you mean by, quote, democracy. Because first of all, the United States as federal government is not a democracy, obviously. It's a republic, and that is a little bit different if you want to get into it. Not only that, as a constitutional republic, it has, the House of Representatives were always meant, even from the founding fathers, to be elected democratically as by popular vote. The Senate originally was conceived of as a representative of the states as entities, as opposed to directly a representative of the people. But the constitutional amendments that occurred during the so-called progressive era at the beginning of the 20th century changed that and made the Senate races also popular votes, which we do have the little bit of a paradox that we're facing, that when a House member leaves office for any reason, they are replaced by a special election, whereas the states themselves have the right to replace senators by the method they choose. Traditionally, it was appointed by the governor as an interim until the next election. However, in more recent years, certain states have gone to special elections for senators in that case, depending on the state, and so that's a factor. And of course, the president is picked by the Electoral College, which is now generally done by popular vote everywhere. So you get the idea here, but that's a little bit of a preamble. But the other question is, so if somebody is if we have a group of citizens, and if somebody is trying to bring in large numbers of immigrants in violation of the law, in the hopes of some days they'll find a way to seize control and make these people citizens and lock themselves in a majority, is that democratic? Is that democracy? Or you see what I'm saying? So that's a point to where I'm saying that in fact the Democrats are the threat to democracy, because they're trying to rig the system in order to win the election and lock in a majority almost on a permanent basis. And that's why I think that, in fact, the biggest lie in the whole campaign that's out there is that Republicans are the threat to democracy. In fact, the Democrat Party is a threat to democracy. And in fact, it's interesting that so many dictatorships in the world, particularly communist ones, do throw the word democratic in their name of their country, the People's Democratic Republic and things of that sort. Such as, I think, North Korea, for instance, which is anything but democratic. So anyway, if you like these videos, please give me a like, and we're always looking for more subscribers, and you can click the bell for notifications if you haven't already. So that's the point I'm trying to make here. And why the Democrats have been, of course, so threatening is we have to look back to what they attempted to do in the last Congress, the one which Biden was elected and took office in 2021. And during that period, the Democrats hatched a plan in which their plan was to end the filibuster in the Senate by basically ignoring the rules of the Senate, the so-called nuclear option, and then they were then going to use that as a method of essentially putting a large number of radical reforms, as they would call them, I would call them power seizures, in order to basically get the domination. For instance, they were going to do things such as legalize a lot of these illegal immigrants that are coming in. They were going to do things such as banning voter ID nationwide. They were going to go into a system of potentially mail-out ballots like you have in California nationwide, and they were planning on packing the Supreme Court with 4 politically selected justices in order to have a majority on the court. And with that, they could then start interpreting the Constitution the way they wanted, such as the Second Amendment would no longer give you the right to keep and bear arms. It would allow the states and the cities to have armed National Guard and police forces and things of that sort, but not you. That's the kind of thing that they had in mind, and it was clearly afoot. And then they used such ridiculous claims that somehow the filibuster was somehow racist, because everything that isn't supporting their policies is racist. But of course, their policies are often racist, in fact. But that's another issue. So, so that's the big threat that the Democrats pose, and that's why it's also critical that the Republicans win the upcoming election. Remember, the only reason this didn't happen in that 2-year time period was that 2 Democrat senators refused to go along with it. All the rest did. 2 didn't, and that stopped it cold, because they had a 50-50 situation there, and effectively that led to them failing to accomplish this goal, and all these plans that they had hatched in the House and things they hadn't actually introduced yet but were going to went away. So, and now of course both those senators are not running for re-election, which presumably the new more radical, more current Democrats will also agree with that, we would assume. And so there's a very serious chance that, in fact, if the Democrats get the majority, even getting 50 votes and winning the presidency and vice presidency, in which they would then be able to have the tie-casting vote, they might very well go ahead and actually do this in the next term. And that's why this election is all important. It's an all-hands-on-deck election. And yet I keep seeing these people who supported candidates other than Trump in the primary holding back and saying, well, our candidate's better, let's wait to 2028 and all that nonsense. Regardless of whether DeSantis would or would not have been better, or Haley would or would not have been better, is irrelevant. There probably won't be a chance of winning in 2028 if they actually win in 2024, particularly if they win all branches of government there. And so that's the key point I want to kind of pound home here, because I think that somehow this is not getting through, and it really bothers me that the Republican Party isn't making a bigger issue of this, of the kind of power seizure that all this illegal immigration, these millions, at least 10 million or maybe more illegal immigrants that have happened during the Biden administration, that this is all part and parcel of a plan to lock in a dominant position, having bought off voters who really have no real affinity to the United States other than any economic value they can get out of it, and no real support for our traditions. This would be the fall of the United States, I think, as a credible country in a lot of ways if it happened. And so that's what I want to kind of emphasize in this particular video, because I've been hitting a variety of minor issues, and I'm thinking of what I wanted to get into tonight, and I had something else that's also important, but maybe a little more lengthy than this one needs to be. And so I want to kind of hit this one. I think this needs to be shared with as many people as possible, that this is why you should not worry about this whole thing. And I grant that Trump does have a tendency to say things that seems to feed the Democrat beast, and it gives them talking points, like this statement where he said, well, was he going to be dictator? He says, only on day one, which they then turn in, he wants to be dictator. Well, he's not going to be dictator even on day one. He'll have no more power on day one than he'll have on day 10, probably less. The point is, but he will have power to do a lot of things that he already showed he could do in the last term that he had in between 17 and 2020. So, and I think that I just keep seeing these things like on X. I don't know whether these are Democrats or what. This Republicans against Trump. Maybe they're ex-Republicans or people that don't know what's good for the country and aren't really looking at the real issues. They're too focused on personalities. Frankly, Biden himself, with all of his faults, isn't the real problem with the Biden administration. It's all the people below Biden, mostly the understudies of the people who are in under Obama. The second stringers of the Obama administration. That's what you've really got running the country right now, putting things before him for his signature he probably only half understands. I mean, and so he's kind of a controlled figure that they can use to promote their agendas. And of course, we want him out of office because we get him and all of his appointees out of office. And that's the key issue. But it's not so much him personally. He's bad. They're worse. The whole thing is terrible. Okay. Now, so that's kind of what I wanted to say about that. And I hope I encourage everybody that's thinking about not voting for Trump here to rethink it. Vote for Trump. I think it's the way to go here. Now, let's another thing that's coming up here. I guess we get toward the end of this. I do want to mention that, of course, Congress will be back in session next week, and I guess starting on I think it's Tuesday. But anyhow, of course, we have a real issue brewing here because MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, has got this whole thing going on with Speaker Johnson. We can only hope that this doesn't happen and we don't have another vacate the seat thing. And if it does happen, let's hope he doesn't get mad like McCarthy did and resign. We already have the issue, as far as I can tell at this minute. It still looks like that Mike Gallagher is still going to resign, a completely asinine decision from what I can see, particularly. And I've called his office, I've sent tweets and so forth. I'm not in his district, and the way the House works, it's kind of hard to really communicate effectively beyond that to the House members. But I would encourage everybody to encourage him to change his mind on that, to either resign now before the deadline, which I think is coming Tuesday, or alternatively just not to do it and serve out his term, which is really the right thing to do. But you got that going on, and of course we'll be down to 217 to 213 when the Democrats win the district up in the north of New York, there where Hillary Clinton lives. The Democrats are almost certain to win that unless a miracle happens, or the Democrats would say a disaster. They'll be to 217 to 214, a 3-vote margin. So we're getting very close to the risk of the Democrats potentially getting in control of the House, and I think that hopefully that doesn't happen, because in that case we still have those 2 Democrat senators, although it's only a 1-vote margin now, so it's getting scarier. Hopefully they still will hold to their position for this term, but if the Democrats get in, who knows what kind of craziness they would pass in the remaining months. Now, that's why I think the issue at this point on the Ukraine bill and all that, although I've already said what I think about that, but the point is it's not worth losing the House over. That's the most important thing, is to maintain and control, and mainly just to block the terribly negative things the Democrats might do. So, anyway, just want to mention that, and we'll have to see what occurs there. I'm hoping that saner heads prevail. The problem is there's a lot of pressure to pass this Ukraine bill, and my thinking is, why not just step back and let them do it with the discharge petition, which eventually they should be able to get enough swing Republicans to do it if it doesn't pass any other way. They are going to have more Republicans than they might need, because I think many members of the so-called squad won't vote for the bill because of the Israeli portion of the bill. So there you have it on that one. And so anyway, that's about what I think about the current political state of being, and I'll be wrapping this up, and of course I'll be posting this on both YouTube and Rumble as always, and the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. So until next time.